All right, EdXL business students, welcome. In this explainer, we're going to break down some absolutely essential topics: recruitment, training, and organizational design. We're going to cover the whole journey, from how a business even finds the right people in the first place, to how it gets them up to speed and then structures the whole team for success. This is key stuff you'll need to nail for your exams.
So, here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with a hiring blueprint. Then, we'll get into the big debate: recruiting from inside or outside the company. After that, we'll explore training, then jump into how companies are structured and who makes the big decisions. And, to finish, we'll have a quick revision session to make sure all these key ideas are really locked in.
Okay, let's get straight into it with the hiring blueprint. You see, before a company can even dream of putting out a job ad, it has to do its homework. You wouldn't build a house without a blueprint, right? Well, it's the same for hiring. This is all about laying the proper groundwork to find the right person. Now, take a look at this. This is basically the step-by-step playbook for recruitment, and it makes perfect sense when you follow it through. First, you've got to figure out you even need someone. Maybe you're growing, maybe someone's leaving. Then you create the two most important documents in hiring, which we'll look at in just a second. After that, it's all about advertising, sifting through CVs, interviewing, and finally, making the offer. And notice that last step, giving feedback. That's so important for a company's reputation. You don't want to leave people with a bad impression.
Okay, this is a classic exam topic where people get mixed up, so let's make it super clear. On the left, you have the job description. It describes the job. Simple. It's all about the what you'll be doing, what your responsibilities are, what the salary is. But on the right, you have the person specification. This specifies the person. It's all about the who. Who is the ideal candidate? What skills do they need? What qualifications are essential and which are just desirable? So remember, description is the job, specification is the person.
So, you've got your documents ready to go. Now for the next huge question. Where do you actually find this perfect person? Do you look around at the talent you've already got working for you? Or do you cast the net much, much wider? This is the big internal versus external recruitment debate.
And really, this is all about weighing the trade-offs. Going internal, promoting someone you already have, is awesome for morale. It shows people there's a ladder to climb. Plus, it's way cheaper and faster, and you already know if they're a good worker. The catch? Well, you just create another job vacancy that needs filling, and you risk your company getting a bit stale without any fresh ideas. On the other hand, external recruitment brings in that new blood, new skills, and a wider choice. But it costs more, takes longer, and it's always a bit of a gamble. You never truly know what you're getting until they start.
Now, if a business does decide to look outside, it's got a whole toolkit of methods it can use. You've got everything from the informal, like good old word of mouth, to more formal advertising online or in magazines. For the really big, senior jobs, a company might even use headhunters, people who are paid to actively go out and poach top talent from competitors. Then you've got things like government job centers, which can be a great low-cost option for certain roles.
Okay, let's put our analyst hats on. Here we've got an ad from Aspire Fitness Center. They're looking for fitness coaches, and they've placed this ad in a local paper. So the question for you is this the best way to do it? Let's think critically, like you would in an exam. What are the pros and what are the cons here?
So, a top-scoring answer always shows a balanced argument. You'd start by acknowledging the good points. Yes, a local paper is actually pretty smart for targeting people who live nearby, which is probably a big plus for this job. However, and this is where you show deeper analysis, you then offer the counterpoint. The pool of candidates is really limited. Using something like an online job board or even a specialist fitness industry website could bring in applications from a much wider area, potentially from people who are more passionate and better qualified. That's the kind of evaluation that gets the high marks.
All right, next stop on our journey. The perfect person has been hired, they've signed the contract. Is the job done? Not even close. In fact, in many ways, the hard work is just beginning. Now the business needs to invest in that person. It's time to talk about training.
So on-the-job training is pretty much what it says on the tin. You learn while you're actually doing the work. The big upsides are that it's generally cheaper, and of course, the business is still getting some work done. It's super relevant. The downsides, though, can be pretty serious. Mistakes can cost money, or worse, be dangerous. I mean, you definitely wouldn't want a surgeon learning on the job for the first time on you, right? Plus, it can be really stressful for the person learning, and kind of frustrating for the experienced colleague who has to train them.
Now, the alternative is off-the-job training. This is where you're sent away from your normal workplace, maybe to a college or a special training center. The huge plus here is that it's a safe space to learn. You can make mistakes without impacting customers or production. The trainee can really focus,
The big negative, it can be seriously expensive. Not just the cost of the course itself, but the lost output, because that employee isn't actually doing their job while they're away learning.
Let's look at this Honda case study. They are famous for their world-class apprenticeship programs, which are a mix of on- and off-the-job training. It's a massive investment, but let's put our purely business finance-focused hats on for a second. Why would another company think twice before doing the same? What are the really big risks involved here?
And the answer really boils down to two key things. First, the obvious one, the massive cost. We're talking course fees, specialist trainers, equipment, plus paying the apprentices a wage for years. But the second reason is a huge strategic risk, and that's retention. Imagine you spend tens of thousands of pounds training someone to be an amazing engineer, and then as soon as they're qualified, your biggest competitor offers them a bit more money and they leave. Ouch. All that investment just walked out the door. So, we've hired our awesome new people, we've trained them up. Now, how do they all fit together? This brings us to organizational design. We're basically talking about the company's skeleton, the formal structure that shows who's in charge of who and how work gets done.
This organizational chart looks a bit complicated, but it's perfect for explaining three key terms you have to know. First is hierarchy. That's just the different levels of authority, from the big boss at the top down to the trainees at the bottom. Second, the chain of command. That's the line that orders travel down, so from the managing director to a production director to a supervisor. And third, span of control. This is simply how many people a manager is directly in charge of. So for the production supervisor here, their span of control is 3. Easy.
Now, most structures fall into one of two camps. On the left, we've got a tall structure. You can literally see it. It looks like a skyscraper with lots of layers. This means the chain of command is long, and managers have a narrow span of control. They only manage a few people. It's good for control, but communication can be slow. On the right, a flat structure. It's more like a bungalow, very few levels. The chain of command is short, and managers have a wide span of control. This is great for fast communication, but managers can easily get overloaded.
There is a more modern way of doing things, though, called a matrix structure. The best way to think about this is to imagine a tech company that wants to launch a new phone. They'll create a project team by pulling specialists from marketing, from engineering, from finance, and from design. They all work together on that one project, and when it's done, they go back to their normal departments. It's super flexible and great for creativity, but the one downside is that you can sometimes end up with two bosses, your department head and your project manager, which can get a bit confusing.
Right, now for a really fundamental question about how a business is run. Once you have your structure, who actually gets to make the important decisions? Is all the power held right at the top, or is it spread out through the organization?
Let's break this down. With a centralized structure, all the big decisions are made at head office by the senior leaders. This is great for consistency. Every branch of the company does things exactly the same way. The problem? It can be really slow, and staff lower down can feel like they have no say. Decentralization is the complete opposite. It pushes the power to make decisions down to local managers. This is really motivating for staff and means they can use their local knowledge to react quickly. The risk, though, is that you can lose control and get inconsistencies between different parts of the business.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. So to make sure you're feeling confident for any exam questions, let's do a really quick lightning round review of the most important terms. Make sure you've got these definitions down. Ready? Let's go. Job description describes the tasks of the job. Person specification specifies the qualities of the person. Induction training, that welcome to the company training for new starters. Chain of command, the line of authority from the top to the bottom. And span of control, how many people a manager is in charge of. Got 'em? Good. Lock those in.
So let's just wrap up with the big picture here. All these concepts we've talked about, they're not just abstract theories for you to memorize for an exam. This is the real-world playbook for how actual businesses are built. Getting these decisions right is literally what separates the businesses that thrive from the ones that fail.
And I'll leave you with one final question to chew on. Think about how we work now. So much is global, so much is remote, with teams spread across different countries and time zones. In that kind of world, which structure do you think is more likely to lead to success? A highly controlled, centralized one where all the decisions come from the top? Or a more flexible, decentralized one that empowers teams on the ground? There's no easy answer, but thinking through those trade-offs, well, that's what business strategy is all about.